Welcome back to the On the Road edition to the Bible in 90 Days. We are on day 64. Yep, it's day 64. We're going to finish the book of Daniel, which is a short book, but it is a one of a kind prophecy. As we go through the prophets, Daniel is not like the other prophets. Daniel is a prophet to the basically to the enemy kings, as we've seen so far, and we're seeing him go through. But he his his prophecies are bold toward them, but he also blesses them. So you kind of see the relationship that God has with these nations. And I say nations because it is Babylon, but now it's Media Persia, as we saw yesterday in the end of our reading. We saw that the Medes came and Darius came in and took over the kingdom, and he ends up befriending Daniel in this. So let's jump into this into this next part of the prophecy, and this is the classics. We begin with the classic story of Daniel in the lion's den. And this is this is really classic, but it's a wonderful prophecy. It's a great faith building prophecy and stuff. But let's just read the story, and we're going to also get into the book of Hosea. And Hosea is one of the classic prophets. He is a prophet to northern Israel, to the northern tribes. And when we start the book, I will introduce him. So, like I said, I was going to tell you where these minor prophets are. So it is, because this is one of the more complicated parts of the Bible. So basically, if you were going to start reading, if you're going to read through Kings, you would Second Kings, you would cut Daniel, you would cut Hosea in when you were talking about the second Jeroboam. So it's about 200 years after that. And if you watch the Bible Project videos before you watch this video, it will help you. But I'm going to try and give you a rough overview about it before we get into it. Well, let's jump right into the word today. We're in Daniel chapter 6. It pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them, one of whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king might not suffer loss. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs. But they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him, because he was trustworthy, and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel, unless it has something to do with the law of his God." All right. Now, just to pause there just for a second, we're talking about integrity. If you are an upstanding person, there is nothing that people can find against you. Now you know how there's something to be said about that, because it is difficult to be a man of integrity, especially in this world that we live in, but let alone his world that he lived in. He knew how to be. He was kind of a man like David. So we're continuing reading in verse 6. So these administrators and satraps went as a group to the king and said, "May King Darius live forever. The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or being during these next 30 days, except to you, your majesty, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered. in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. So King Darius put the decree in writing. Now Daniel was learned that the decree had been published, and now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room, where his windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to God just as he had done before. These men went as a group and found Daniel praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days anyone who prays to any god or human being except you, your majesty, would be thrown into the lion's den? The king answered, "The decree stands, in accordance with the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repealed." 13. Then they said to the king, "Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, your majesty, or to the decree you put in writing. He still prays 3 times a day." When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. He was determined to rescue Daniel, and made every effort until sundown to save him. Verse 15. Then the men went as a group to King Darius and said to him, "Remember, your majesty, that according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no decree or edict that the king issues can be changed." 16. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God help you. May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you." 17. A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. Then the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. 19. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" 21. Daniel answered, "May the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty." 23. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. 24. At the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lion's den, along with their wives and children. And before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. 25. Then King Darius wrote to all the nations and peoples of every language in all the earth, "May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that every part of my kingdom people must fear and revere the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed, and his dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius, and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Chapter 7, sorry. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream, and visions passed through his mind as he was laying in the bed. He wrote down the substance of his dream. Daniel said, "In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was 4 winds of heaven churning up the great sea. 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea." Verse 4. The first was like a lion, and it had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground, that it stood on 2 feet like a human being, and the mind of a human was given to it. Verse 5. And there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth. Between its teeth, it was told, "Get up and eat your fill of flesh." Verse 6. After that I looked, and before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had 4 wings, like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. Verse 7. After that, in my vision at night I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, a terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims, and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and the 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a human being, and a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow. The hair of his head was white, like wool. His throne was flaming with fire. Its wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. Verse 11. Then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and thrown into a blazing fire. The other beasts had been stripped of their authority, but were allowed to live for a period of time. 13. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was there was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days, and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and the kingdom that is one that will never be destroyed. 15. I, Daniel, was troubled in spirit, and the visions that passed through my mind disturbed me. I approached one of those standing there and asked him the meaning of all this. So he told me and gave me the interpretation of these things. The 4 great beasts are 4 kings that will rise from the earth. But the holy people of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess it forever, yes, forever and ever. Verse 19. Then I wanted to know the meaning of the 4th beast, which was different from all the others, and most terrifying, with its iron teeth and bronze claws, the beast that crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head, and about the other horn that came up before which the 3 of them fell, and the horn that looked more imposing than the others, and that had eyes and a mouth, and that spoke boastfully. As I watched, this horn was waging war against the holy people and defeating them, until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favor of the holy people of the Most High, and the time came when they possessed the kingdom. Verse 23. He gave me this explanation. The 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all other kingdoms. It will devour the whole earth, trampling it down underfoot, crushing it. 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people, and try to change the set times and laws that the holy people will be delivered into his hands and the holy people will be delivered into his hands for a times and a half time. 26. But the court will sit, and his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty power, and greatness of all kingdoms under heaven will be handed over to the holy people of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will worship and obey him. This is the end of the matter. I, Daniel, was deeply troubled by my thoughts, and my face turned pale, but I kept the matter to myself. Chapter 8. In the 3rd year of King Belshazzar's reign, I, Daniel, had a vision, after the one that had already appeared to me. In my vision I saw myself in the citadel of Susa, in the province of Elam. In the vision I was beside the Ulai canal. I looked up, and there before me was a ram with 2 horns, standing beside the canal, and the horns were long. One of the horns was longer than the other, but grew up later. I watched the ram as it charged toward the west, and the north, and the south. No animal could stand against it, and none could rescue from its power. It did as it pleased, and it became great. I was thinking about this, verse 5. As I was thinking about this, suddenly a goat with a prominent horn between his eyes came from the west, crossing the whole earth without touching the ground. It came toward the 2-horned ram I had seen standing beside the canal, and charged at it in a great rage. I saw it attack the ram furiously, striking the ram and shattering its 2 horns. The ram was powerless to stand against it. The goat knocked it to the ground and trampled on it, and none could rescue the ram from its power. And the goat became very great, but at the height of its power, the large horn was broken off, and in its place were 4 prominent horns, grew up toward the 4 winds of heaven. Verse 9. Out of one of them came another horn, which started small, but grew in power to the south, and to the east, and toward the beautiful land. It grew until it reached the host of heavens. Then it threw some of the starry host down to the earth and trampled on them. It set itself up to be as great as the commander of the army of the Lord. It took away the daily sacrifice from the Lord, and his sanctuary was thrown down. Because of rebellion, the Lord's people, and the daily sacrifice were given over to it. It prospered in everything it did, and truth was thrown to the ground. 13. Then I heard the Holy One speaking, and another Holy One said to him, How long will it take for the visions to be fulfilled? The vision concerning the daily sacrifice, the rebellion that causes desolation, the surrender of the sanctuary, and the trampling under the foot of the Lord's people. He said to me, It will take 2,300 evenings and mornings. Then the sanctuary will be reconsecrated. Verse 15. While I, Daniel, was watching the vision and trying to understand it, there before me stood one who looked like a man. And I heard a man's voice from the Ulai calling, Gabriel, tell this man the meaning of the vision. 17. As he came near the place where I was standing, I was terrified and fell prostrate. Son of man, he said, understand that the vision concerns the time of the end. 18. While he was speaking to me, I was in a deep sleep, with my face to the ground, and then he touched me and raised me to my feet. He said, I am going to tell you what will happen later in the time of wrath, because the vision concerns the appointed time of the end. 20. The 2-horned ram that you saw represents the kings of Media and Persia. The shaggy goat is the king of Greece, and the large horn between its eyes is the first king. The 4 horns that replaced the one that was broken off represent the 4 kingdoms that will emerge from his nation, but will not have the same power. 23. In the latter part of the reign, when the rebels have become completely wicked, a fierce-looking master of intrigue will arise. They will become very strong, but not by his own power. He will cause astounding devastation and will succeed in whatever he does. He will destroy those who are mighty, the holy people. He will cause deceit to prosper, and he will consider himself superior. When they feel secure, he will destroy many and take his stand against the prince of princes. Yet he will be destroyed, but not by human power. Verse 26. The vision of the evenings and mornings has been given to you. It is true, but seal up the vision, for it concerns the distant future. I, Daniel, was worn out. I lay exhausted for several days. Then I got up and went about the king's business. I was appalled by the vision. It was beyond understanding. Chapter 9. In the first year of Darius, son of Xerxes, a Mede by descent, who was made ruler over the Babylonian kingdom, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood from the Scriptures, according to the word of the Lord given to Jeremiah the prophet, and that the desolation of Jerusalem would last 70 years. So I turned to the Lord and pleaded with him in prayer, and petition, in fasting, and in sackcloth and ashes, as I prayed to the Lord my God and confessed. Verse 4 says, I prayed to the Lord my God and confessed. Lord, the great and awesome God, who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and keep his commandments. We have sinned and done wrong. We have been wicked and have rebelled. We have turned away from your commands and laws. We have not listened to your servants, the prophets, who spoke in your name to our kings, our princes, and our ancestors, and to all the people of the land. Lord, you are righteous, but this day you are covered with shame. We are covered with shame, the people of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem and all Israel, both near and far, in all the countries where you have scattered us, because of our unfaithfulness to you. We and our kings, our princes, and our ancestors are covered with shame, Lord, because we have sinned against you. The Lord our God is merciful and forgiving. Even though we have rebelled against him, we have not obeyed the Lord our God, or kept the laws he gave us through his servants the prophets. All Israel has transgressed your law and turned away, refusing to obey you. Therefore the curses and sworn judgments, as written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, have been poured out on us, because we have sinned against you. You have fulfilled the word spoken against us and against our rulers by bringing on us great disaster. Under the whole heaven nothing has ever been done like what has been done to Jerusalem. Just as it was written in the law of Moses, all this disaster has come on us. Yet we have not sought favor of the Lord our God by turning from sins and giving attention to your truth. The Lord did not hesitate to bring disaster on us. For the Lord our God is righteous in everything he does, yet we have not obeyed him. Verse 15. Now, Lord our God, who brought your people out of Egypt with a mighty hand, and who made yourself a name that endures to this day, we have sinned, we have done wrong. Lord, in keeping with all your righteous acts, turn away your anger and your wrath from Jerusalem, your city, your holy hill. Our sins and iniquities of our ancestors have made Jerusalem and your people an object of scorn to all those around us. 17. Now, our God, hear the prayers and petitions of your servant. For your sake, Lord, look with favor on your desolate sanctuary. Give ear, our God, and hear. Open your eyes and see the desolation of the city that bears your name. We do not make request for you of you because we are righteous, but because of your great mercy. Lord, listen. Lord, forgive. Lord, hear and act. For your sake, my God, do not delay, because your city and your people bear your name. Verse 20. While I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and making request to the Lord my God for his holy hill, while I was still in prayer, Gabriel, the man I had seen earlier in the vision, came to me in swift flight about the time of the evening sacrifice. He instructed me and said to me, Daniel, I have now come to give you insight and understanding. As soon as you began to pray, a word went out which I have come to tell you, for you are highly esteemed. Therefore consider the word and understand the vision. 70 sevens are decreed for your people, your holy city to finish transgression, and your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. Verse 25. Now understand this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, until the Anointed One, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens, and it will be rebuilt with streets and a trench. But in times of trouble, after the 62 sevens, the Anointed One will be put to death and will have nothing. The people of the ruler will come, and the ruler who will come to destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end, and desolations have been decreed. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. In the middle of the 7, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering, and at the temple he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that is decreed. Till the end that is decreed is poured out on him. Chapter 10. Man, that just blew my mind. I don't know if y'all picked up on it, but it blew my mind. In the 3rd year of King Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel, who is called Belteshazzar. Its message was true, and it concerned a great war. The understanding of the message came to him in a vision. At that time I, Daniel, mourned for 3 weeks. I ate no choice food, no meat or wine, or touched my lips. I used no lotions at all, until the 3 weeks were over. On the 24th day of the 1st month, I was standing on the bank of the great river, the Tigris. I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen, with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. His body was like topaz, and his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, and his arms and legs like a gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude. Verse 7. I, Daniel, was the only one who saw the vision. Those who were with me did not see it, but such terror overwhelmed them that they fled and hid themselves. So I was left alone, gazing at this great vision. I had no strength left. My face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless. Then I heard him speaking, and as I listened to him, I fell into a deep sleep, my face to the ground. Verse 10. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said, Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, consider carefully the words that I am about to speak to you, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. Verse 12. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come. Verse 15. While he was saying this to me, I bowed with my face toward the ground, and was speechless. Then one who looked like a man touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. I said to the one standing before me, I am overcome with anguish because of the vision, my Lord. I feel very weak. How can your servant, talk with you, my Lord? My strength is gone, and I can hardly breathe. 18. Again, the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength. Do not be afraid. You who are highly esteemed, he said. Peace. Be strong now. Be strong. Then he spoke to me. When he spoke to me, I was strengthened, and said, Speak, my Lord, since you have given me strength. So he said, Do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to fight against the prince of Persia, and when I go, the prince of Greece will come. But first I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. And in the first year of Darius the Mede, I took my stand to support and protect him. Verse 2. Did I say chapter 11? We're in chapter 11 now. The numbers are kind of mixed up in this Bible. I don't know how they look in your Bible. Verse 2. Now then, I tell you the truth. 3 more kings will arise in Persia, and then a fourth, who will be far richer than all the others. When he has gained power by his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece. Then a mighty king will arise, who will rule with great power and do as he pleases. After he has risen, his empire will be broken up and parceled out to the 4 winds of heaven. It will not go to his descendants, nor will it have the power that he exercised, because his empire will be uprooted and given to others. He's talking about Greece and Rome, right there. Verse 5. The king of the south will become strong, but one of his commanders will become even stronger than he, and will rule his own kingdom with great power. After some years they will become allies. The daughter of the king of the south will go to the king of the north and to make an alliance, but she will not retain her power, and his power will not last. In those days she will be betrayed, together with her royal escort and her father, and the one who supported her. Verse 7. One from her family line will arise to take her place. He will attack the forces of the king of the north, and enter his fortress. Then he will fight against them and be victorious. He will also seize their gods, their metal images, and their valuable articles of silver and gold, and carry them off to Egypt. For some years he will leave the king of the north alone, but the king of the north will invade the realm of the king of the south, but will retreat to his own country. His sons will prepare for war and assemble a great army, which will sweep like an irresistible flood, and carry the battle as far as his fortress. Verse 11. Then the king of the south will march out in a rage and fight against the king of the north, who will raise a large army, but it will be defeated. When the army is carried off, the king of the south will be filled with pride and will slaughter many thousands. Yet he will not remain triumphant, for the king of the north will muster another army, larger than the first, and after several years will advance a huge army fully equipped. He will advance with a huge army fully equipped. That's what it says. Verse 14. In those times, many will rise against the king of the south. Those who are violent among your own people will rebel in fulfillment of the vision, but without success. Then the king of the north will come and build up siege ramps, and will capture a fortified city. The forces of the south will be powerless to resist even their best. Even their best troops will not have the strength to stand. The invader will do as he pleases. No one will be able to stand against him. He will establish himself in the beautiful land, and will have the power to destroy it. He will determine to come with the might of his entire kingdom, and will make an alliance with the king of the south, and he will give him a daughter in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom, but his plans will not succeed or help him. Then he will turn his attention to the coastlands and will take many of them. But a commander will put an end to his insolence and will turn his insolence back on him. After this he will turn back toward the fortress of his own country, but will stumble and fall to be seen no more. Verse 20. His successor will send out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor. In a few years, however, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or in battle. Verse 21. He will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. He will invade the kingdom when its people feel secure, and he will seize it through intrigue. Then an overwhelming army will be swept away before him. Both it and a prince of the covenant will be destroyed. After coming to an agreement with him, he will act deceitfully, and with only a few people he will rise to power. When the richest provinces feel secure, he will invade them, and will achieve what neither his fathers nor his forefathers did. He will distribute plunder, loot, and wealth among his followers. He will plot to overthrow the fortresses, but only for a time. 25. With a large army he will stir up his strength and courage against the king of the south. The king of the south will wage war with a large and very powerful army, but it will not be able to stand because of the plots devised against him. Those who eat from the king's provisions will try to destroy him. His army will be swept away, and many will fall in battle. The two kings, with their hearts bent on evil, will sit at the same table and lie to each other, but to no avail, because an end will still come at the appointed time. The king of the north will return to his own country with great wealth and with his heart, but his heart will be set against the holy covenant. He will take action against it and return to his own country. Verse 29. At the appointed time, he will invade the south again, but this time the outcome will be different from what it was before. The ships of the western coastlands will be opposite him, will oppose him, and he will lose heart, and then he will turn and vent his fury against the holy covenant. He will return and show favor to those who forsake the holy covenant. 31. His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. That with flattery he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant, but the people will know their God and will firmly resist him. Verse 33. Those who are wise will instruct many, though for a time they will fall by the sword or be burned or captured or plundered. When they fall, they will receive a little help. Many who are not sincere will join him. Some of the wise will stumble, so that they may be refined, purified, and made spotless until the time of the end, for it will still come at the appointed time. Verse 36. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed. For what has been determined must take place. He will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors, or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortress, a god unknown to his ancestors. He will honor with gold and silver, and with precious stones, and with costly gifts. He will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people, and will distribute the land at a price. Verse 40. At that time, at the time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry, and with a great fleet of ships. He will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control of the treasuries of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt, with the Libyans, Cushites, and Cushites in submission. But the reports from the east and the north will alarm him. He will set out in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many. He will pitch his royal descendants between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain. He will then come to his end, and no one will help him. Chapter 12. At that time, Michael, the great prince, who protects your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress such as has not happened from the beginning of nations until then. But at that time, your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will wake, some to everlasting life, and others to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars for ever and ever. But you, Daniel, roll up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. Many will go here and there to increase knowledge. Verse 5. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there before me stood two others, one on the bank of the one on this bank of the river, and one on the opposite bank. One of them said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, "How long will it be before these astonishing things are fulfilled?" 7. The man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, lifted his right hand and his left hand toward the heaven, and I heard him swear by him who lives forever, saying, "It will be for a time, times, and half a time. Then the power of the holy people, when the power of the holy people has been finally broken, all these things will be completed." Verse 8. I heard, but I did not understand, so I asked, "My Lord, what will the outcome of all this be?" He replied, "Go your way, Daniel, because all the words are rolled up and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified, made spotless and refined, but the wicked will continue to be wicked. None of the wicked will understand those who are wise, but those who are wise will understand." Verse 11. From the time that the daily sacrifice is abolished, and the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed is the one who waits for and reaches the end of the 1,335 days. As for you, go your way until the end. You will rest, and then at the end of days, you will rise to recover your allotted inheritance. People get lost in the book of Daniel. All right, Hosea. All right, we're getting in a time traveling machine, and we're going back to 2 Kings in before Assyria destroys it. Okay, so we're like 730, and look, I'm not looking at a book to tell you this. I'm just kind of going off. The northern kingdom was destroyed in 722 by Assyria. So 730, 740 is probably too late. So we're approaching 720 because there's prophecy. This prophecy is against Israel in what it's doing, and it's a foreshadow of their destruction by Assyria. Okay. So if you don't understand that, let me tell you in a different way. It was after Solomon. You remember we had David and Solomon, the good times, and then you had Rehoboam, and you had these guys, and then you had Jehoiakim in Israel, and or Jeroboam. That's right, and then his successor Jeroboam the second, and that's who is being prophesied to in Hosea. Hosea is a book of poetry. It's really well put together, and it's a story. Now, don't get lost in the story of the adultery that happens against him, because while it's probably true, it's a symbol for the relationship between Israel and God. Okay, Israel is the unfaithful wife, and God is the faithful husband who keeps struggling to keep this wife, and just as God keeps struggling to keep Israel on the right path. So we're going to read, I think, 7 chapters. Yep, we're going to read to Hosea 7. So let's jump right in. The word of the Lord that came to Hosea, son of Beeri, during the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, the kings of Judah, and during the reign of Jeroboam, son of Josiah, or Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, king of Israel. So look, that is exactly the same time as Isaiah. Okay, he's a contemporary with Isaiah. Verse 2. When the word of the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, Go, marry a promiscuous woman, and have children with her. For like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord. So he married Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. Then the Lord said to Hosea, Call him Jezreel, because I will soon punish the house of Jehu for the massacre at Jezreel, and it will be at the end of the kingdom, and I will put an end of the kingdom of Israel. In that day I will break Israel's bow in the valley of Jezreel. Remember that. Remember we just talked about that not too long ago in the reviews about all that, what happened. Verse 6. Gomer conceived again and gave birth to a daughter. Then the Lord called to Hosea, Call her Lo-ruhamah, which means not loved. For I will no longer show love to Israel, that I should at all forgive them. Yet I will show love to Judah, and I will save them, but not by bow, sword, or battle, or by horses and horsemen, but I, the Lord, their God, will save them. Verse 8. After she had weaned Lo-ruhamah, Gomer had another son. Then the Lord said, Call him Lo-ammi, which means not my people. For you are not my people, and I am not your God. Verse 10. Yet the Israelites will be like the sand on the seashore, which cannot be measured or counted. In the place where it was said to them, "You are not my people," they will be called children of the living God. The people of Judah and the people of Israel will come together. They will appoint one leader and will come up out of the land, for great will be the day of Jezreel. Chapter 2. Say of your brothers, my people, and of your sisters, my loved one. Verse 2. Rebuke your mother, rebuke her, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband. Let her remove the adulterous look from her face, and the unfaithfulness from between her breasts. Otherwise I will strip her naked, and make her bare as on the day she was born. I will make her like a desert, turn her into a parched land, and slay her with thirst. I will not show my love to her children, because they are the children of adultery. Their mother has been unfaithful, and has conceived them in disgrace. She said, I will go after my lovers, who give me my food and my water, my wool and my linen, my olive oil and my drink. Therefore I will block her path with thorn bushes. I will wall her in so that she cannot find her way. She will chase after her lovers, but not catch them. She will look for them, but not find them. Then she will say, I will go back to my husband as at first. For then I was better off than now. She has not acknowledged that I was the one who gave her the grain, the new wine, and oil, who lavished on her the silver and gold which they used for Baal. Therefore, I will take away my grain when it ripens, and my new wine when it is ready. I will take back my wool and my linen, intended to cover her naked body. Now I will expose her lewdness before the eyes of her lovers. No one will take her out of my hands. I will stop her celebrations, her yearly festivals, her new moons, her Sabbath days, her appointed festivals. I will ruin her vines and her fig trees, which she said were her pay from her lovers. I will make them a thicket, and wild animals will devour them. I will punish her for the days she burned incense to the Baals. She decked herself with rings and jewelry and went after her lovers. But me she forgot, declares the Lord. Verse 14. Therefore I am now going to allure her, and I will lead her into the wilderness, and speak tenderly to her. There I will give her back her vineyards, and will make the valley of Achor a door of hope. There she will respond as in the days of her youth, as in the day she came up out of Egypt. 16. In that day, declares the Lord, you will call me my husband. You will no longer call me my master. I will remove the names of the Baals from her lips. No longer will the names be invoked. In that day I will make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field and the birds of the sky and the creatures that move along the ground. Bow and sword and battle I will abolish from the land, and so that all may lie down in safety. I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you in righteousness and justice, in love and compassion. I will betroth you in faithfulness, and you will acknowledge the Lord. In that day I will respond, declares the Lord. I will respond to the skies, and they will respond to the earth. And the earth will respond to the grain, and the new wine and the olive oil, and they will respond to Jezreel. I will plant her for myself in the land. I will show my love to the one I called not my loved one. I will say to those called not my people, you are my people. And they will say, You are my God. Chapter 3. The Lord said to me, Go, show your love to your wife again. Though she is loved by another man and is an adulteress, love her as the Lord loves the Israelites. Through them, though they turn to other gods and love the sacred raisin cakes, so I bought her for 15 shekels of silver, and about an omer of a lithek of barley. Then I told her, You are to live with me many days. You must not be a prostitute or be intimate with any man, and I will behave the same way toward you. For the Israelites will live many days without a king or prince, without sacrifice or sacred stones, without ephod or household gods. Afterward the Israelites will return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. They will come trembling before the Lord, trembling to the Lord, to his blessings in the last days. Chapter 4. Hear the word of the Lord, you Israelites, because the Lord has charged to bring against you and you who live in the land. There is no faithfulness, no love, no acknowledgement of God in the land. There is only cursing, lying, and murdering, stealing, and adultery. They break all bonds, and bloodshed follows bloodshed. Because of this the land dries up, and all who live in it waste away. The beasts of the field, and the birds of the sky, and the fish in the sea are swept away. But let no one bring a charge. Let no one accuse another, for your people are like those who bring charges against a priest. You stumble day and night, and the prophets stumble with you. So I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge, because you have rejected knowledge. I also reject you as my priests, because you have ignored the law of your God. I will also ignore your children. Verse 7. The more priests were there, the more priests there were, the more they sinned against me. They exchanged their glorious God for something disgraceful. They fed on the sins of my people and relished their wickedness. Verse 9. And it will be like people, like priests. I will punish both of them for their ways and repay them for their deeds. They will eat but not have enough. They will engage in prostitution but not flourish, because they have deserted the Lord, to give themselves to prostitution, old wine and new wine. Take away their understanding. Old wine and new wine take away their understanding. My people consult a wooden idol, and a diviner's rod speaks to them. A spirit of prostitution leads them astray, and they are unfaithful to their God. They sacrifice on the mountaintops and burn offerings on the hills, under oak, poplar, and terebinth, where the shade is pleasant. Therefore your daughters turn to prostitution, as in your daughters-in-law to adultery, and your daughters-in-law to adultery. Verse 14. I will not punish your daughters when they turn to prostitution, nor your daughters-in-law when they commit adultery, because the men themselves consort with harlots, and sacrifice with shrine prostitutes. A people without understanding will come to ruin. 15. Though you, Israel, commit adultery, and do not let Judah become guilty, do not go to Gilgal, do not go up to Beth-aven, and do not swear, as surely as the Lord lives. The Israelites are stubborn, like a stubborn heifer. How then can the Lord pasture them, like lambs in a meadow? Ephraim is joined to idols. Leave him alone. Even when their drinks are gone, they continue their prostitution. Their rulers dearly love shameful ways. Verse 19. A whirlwind will sweep them away, and their sacrifices will bring them shame. Chapter 5. Hear this, you priests. Pay attention, you Israelites. Listen, royal house. This judgment is against you. You have been a snare at Mizpah, a net spread about on Tabor. The rebels are knee-deep in slaughter. I will discipline all of them. I know all about Ephraim. Israel is not hidden from me. Ephraim, you have now turned to prostitution. Israel is corrupt. Verse 4, their deeds do not permit them to return to their God. A spirit of prostitution is in their heart. They do not acknowledge the Lord. Israel's arrogance testifies against them. The Israelites, even Ephraim, stumble in their sin. Judah also stumbles with them. Then when they go out with their flocks and herds to seek the Lord, they will not find him. He has withdrawn himself from them. They are unfaithful to the Lord. They give birth to illegitimate children when they celebrate their new moon. When they celebrate their new moon feast, he will devour their fields. Verse 8. Sound the trumpet in Gibeah, the horn in Ramah. Raise the battle cry in Beth Aven. Lead on, Benjamin. Ephraim will be laid to waste on the day of reckoning. Among the tribes of Israel I will proclaim what is certain. Judah's leaders are like those who move boundary stones. I will pour out my wrath on them like a flood of water. Ephraim is oppressed, trampled in judgment, intent on pursuing idols. Verse 12. I am like a moth to Ephraim, like rot to the people of Judah. Verse 13. Then when Ephraim saw his sickness, and Judah his sores, then Ephraim turned to Assyria, and sent to the great kings for help. But he is not able to cure you, not able to heal your sores. For I will be like a lion to Ephraim, and like a great lion to Judah. I will tear them to pieces and go away. I will carry them off with no one to rescue them. Then I will return to my lair until they have borne their guilt, and seek my face. In their misery they will earnestly seek me. Chapter 6. Come then, come, let us return to the Lord. He has torn us to pieces, but he will heal us. He has injured us, but he will bind up our wounds. After 2 days he will revive us. On the 3rd day he will restore us, that we may live in his presence. Let us acknowledge the Lord. Let us press on to acknowledge him. As surely as the sun rises, he will appear. He will come to us like the winter rains, like the spring rains that water the earth. What can I do with you, Ephraim? What can I do with you, Judah? Your love is like the morning mist, like early dew that disappears. Therefore I cut you into pieces with my prophets. I killed you with the words of my mouth. Then my judgments will go forth like the sun, for I desire mercy, not sacrifice, and acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. Verse 7. As at Adam, they have broken the covenant. They were unfaithful to me there. Gilead is a city of evildoers, stained with footprints of blood. As marauders lie in ambush for a victim, so do bands of priests. They murder on the road to Shechem, carrying out their wicked schemes. I have seen a horrible thing in Israel. There Ephraim is given to prostitution. Israel is defiled. Also for you, Judah, a harvest is appointed, whenever I would restore the fortunes of my people. Chapter 7. Whenever I would heal Israel, the sins of Ephraim are exposed, and the crimes of Samaria revealed. They practice deceit. Thieves break into houses. Bandits rob in the streets. But they do not realize that I remember all their evil deeds. Their sins engulf them, and they are always before me. They delight in the They delight the king with their wickedness, the princes with all their lies. They are all adulterers, burning like an oven, whose fire the baker need not stir, from the kneading of the dough till it rises. On the day of the festival of our king, the princes become inflamed with wine, and he joins hands with the mockers. Verse 6. Their hearts are like an oven. They approach him with intrigue. Their passions smolder all night. In the morning it blazes like a flaming fire. All of them are as hot as an oven. They devour their rulers. All their kings fall, and none of them calls on me. Verse 8. Ephraim mixes with the nations. Ephraim is a flat loaf not turned over. Foreigners sap his strength, but he does not realize it. His hair is sprinkled with gray, but he does not notice. Israel's arrogance testifies against him, but despite all this, he does not return to the Lord his God, or search for him. Verse 11. Ephraim is like a dove, easily deceived and senseless, now calling to Egypt, now turning to Assyria. When they go, I will throw my net over them. I will pull them down like birds in the sky. When I hear them flocking together, I will catch them. Woe to them, because they have strayed from me. Destruction to them, because they have rebelled against me. I long to redeem them, but they speak about me falsely. That's it right there. Dang. Verse 14. They do not cry out to me from their hearts, but wail on their beds. They slash themselves, appealing to their gods for grain and new wine, but they turn away from me. I trained them and strengthened their arms, but they plot evil against me. They do not turn to the Most High. They are like a faulty bow. Their leaders will fall by the sword because of their insolent words. For this they will be really ridiculed in the land of Egypt. Whew. I really love the minor prophets, guys. Y'all are gonna hear the passion of all of this as we go through. You know, it's only a few days that we're in these minor prophets. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 more days until we get to Matthew. So we should be, but it's difficult. There are 12 prophets in these 4 days. Well, 10 more. So we've got Hosea and Joel and Amos. These guys are awesome, but they are confusing. You have to understand who they're talking to, because you can't really just take words from the Bible and apply them to just anything. You know, you could make the Bible say anything in any time to any way if you don't use the context with it. All right, guys. Well, it's been a long day. Y'all take care. Have a wonderful day. God bless you. God loves you. I love you too. God bless you. Amen. Bye-bye.